We need to get life jackets down to these people.
The wooden boat is full of people clinging on as the swell throws them towards the cliffs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's program. Tonight we shall be investigating the case of Australian immigration policies and just how exactly these norms have affected not only asylum seekers hoping to gain physical refuge in Australia, but the influence on the greater community as a Commonwealth. Firstly, we turn our attention to the recent developments in Australia's continued negotiation with New Zealand over accepting who we dub boat people for offshore processing. In her February 9th article, published in the New Zealand Herald, Audrey Young asserts her disappointed view on the matter, writing, "The Refugee Council of New Zealand, RCNZ, has condemned the decision to take 150 refugees annually from Australia. Now that the talks between the Australian and New Zealander camps have finally burst through the proverbial glass ceiling that once lingered between them, not only naturally has uproar been heard through the echoing hallways of the media has ticketed." In this same article, Amanda Bryden, Amnesty International's Government Relations Manager, offered the following: "It is extremely disappointing to see New Zealand government support this policy in its acceptance of this deal. Quite tragic if you ask me. For years we have rambled and clawed for a resolution, albeit a partial one, to the stubborn problem that is Australia's refugee crisis, and that there is one. Albeit partial, our representatives waste no time condemning it. What a tragic people we are. Furthermore, the Prime Minister of New Zealand himself was only to clarify the decisions with the following release: "We get a huge amount of support from Australia." Okay, sure, that sounds all well and good, but the second instalment of this statement is surely of my concern. John Key continuing, "It's less resources that we have to put in. So now, not only do we call them boat people, we consider them as a commodity to be sold on the economic market. How low can the powers go? Perhaps we will never be satisfied. Perhaps we will reverse our thinking that these refugees, regardless of their circumstances, that they have sought to flee their homeland, they have the rights to a new lifestyle here in Australia. Are we not members of the United Nations? Do we not support the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Perhaps. Only time will tell."
Thank you, Mr. Georges. Yes, today I'll be giving you all the facts and figures about refugees and boat people today. Well, firstly, I'll be talking about the challenges we face as refugees. One of the major challenges facing the world today is protecting refugees who have been forced to leave their homes by armed conflict and abusement of human rights. Another major challenge is finding out which of these people are genuine refugees and which are just seeking asylum. In the report 60 Minutes they state that many of the refugees that are detained in Australia are unstable, claiming they are traumatized or troublemakers and constantly start riots that are hushed by the authorities, which is highly incorrect. Mr. Georges will explain why. Thank you, Bella Georges. Now back to the report. We have found that between July 30, 2008 and July 30, 2009, 217 refugee assessments on boat arrivals were carried out on Christmas Island. Of these, 206, or 95%, were approved and applicants were granted protection visas. Also, there are many Australian non-government organisations, NGOs, that are run by Australian citizens that play an important role in dealing with refugees. Some NGOs include Australian Council for International Development, Australia for UNHCR, Australian National Committee for Refugees, Women, Caritas Australia, and many more that assist with refugee resettlement in different areas of Australia. This report has helped some of your viewers see the other side of refugee and boat people struggles that other networks don't show you.
Tonight, also we'll be addressing the issue of refugees and boat people and where we all stand on that point. We'll be accompanied by a reporter, Mr. Romanos. Well then, what will you be talking about first to show us that what we have been told is incorrect and false media advertising? This is definitely a critical problem. While talking about refugees as we must treat them humanely, but to what extent must we go to, is being addressed by many reporting stations including Channel 9's 60 Minutes. Here's our presenter Jacob to inform you on what they are trying to tell us. When in reality, they have it all wrong, with the majority of asylum seekers who have reached Australia by boat being found to be genuine refugees. Between 85% and 90% have typically been found to be refugees, compared to around 40% of asylum seekers who arrive by a plane with a valid visa. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics
Humanitarian
Arrivals article for 2012, they have also tried to tell us that Australian people are taking a hardline stance against boat people thinking of it as a national security issue or a border security and overlook the fact that it is a humanitarian issue.
And now, while we're on the topic of asylum seekers, Australian Human Rights Commissioner President Gillian Trigg said she was profoundly concerned that Australia had employed an enhanced screening process in recent months for Sri Lankan boat arrivals. The latest group that has been rejected asylum included 38 men, women and children who arrived on boat that was intercepted off the coast of Western Australia. In the Nine News story, run on the 19th of April 2013, they claim that 38 Sri Lankan asylum seekers have been denied legal access by the Immigration Department before sending them back. Gillian Triggs told Channel 9 that the Australian government risks breaching its non-refoulement obligations, in which it states that asylum seekers cannot be returned to countries that might prosecute the returnees. Immigration Minister Brendan O'Connor denied these claims, stating that Australia was not acting in an injustice manner. Brendan O'Connor said that Sri Lankan asylum seekers did not request for legal support. We are ensuring that obligations in accordance with the United Nations Refugee Convention are fulfilled, he told reporters in Adelaide. Brendan O'Connor also stated that 20 other asylum seekers who arrived on the boat from Sri Lanka got their refugee claims assessed. Nine News states that it's sending asylum seekers back will scare off the rest from boarding boats to Australia, but this is not always the case, because the conditions in their countries at the moment is worth taking the risk to jump on a boat to seek asylum, even though Australia does not guarantee settlement.
Asylum seekers are not all being treated fairly. A detention center located in Nauru has its occupants participating in hunger strikes, and there have been a few attempts of suicide. These protests are being caused when thousands of refugees who arrived after August 14th, who were being held within the detention center, were released into the community on bridging visas. Julia Gillard has not and will not do anything to respond to these acts of protests. She says, having a hunger strike or anything like that does not change people's outcomes. Brendan O'Connor, the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, says that no one wants to see incidents of this kind, which is why the Gillard government is moving people into community detention where appropriate. These incidents that are occurring are being caused by taking refugees out of the detention sites. Putting them into detention sites is not going to solve any problems, but it's actually going to be creating more. The Nauru Detention Center is one of the worst. There have been reports of violence, sexual abuse, and inhumane conditions. The Human Rights Commissioner, Gillian Triggs, has said that she is waiting for advice from the Solicitor General on whether she has jurisdiction over the asylum seekers. Without jurisdiction, there could be no promise to consider complaints from those detained on Nauru. Green Senator Hanson Young will introduce an amendment to try to force Australia to ensure Triggs' access to the camps.
To all our viewers, that is all we have time for today. Please tune in next week to see the truth in every story.